day and thank you for joining CivilNet. Today our guest at the studio is Dr. Rolf Hosfeld. He's the academic director of the Lepsius House in Germany, a leading genocide studies institution. Thank you for joining us today. Speaking of genocide studies, it's a field in academia that's not very well understood. What is genocide studies? Is it a field for historians? Is it, how has it changed? How much of it is politicized? That was just the general question. I know it's a very long question probably as well, but if you could give us a feel of what constituted genocide studies at the turn of the century and how has the field developed?
Okay, maybe it makes sense to talk about this, how genocide became into a topic of public conscience, and I think this happened mostly in the 19s within the Yugoslavian wars, when things happening in Bosnia and in Kosovo, and then we experienced the genocide in Rwanda, and this brought us back to ask in a more general way about things in history which are longer back, so to the Armenian genocide, and in the case of the Germans also the genocide of the Hereros in Africa in the beginning of the 20th century. And you know, when I grew up, mostly we were educated in Holocaust studies, so this was something we thought it was a unique thing, but within the 90s and in the following years we became aware that genocide is something like a general phenomenon. This only means that you get attention, you pay attention to something which you see has comparable aspects, even if every genocide in its way is something unique. And this brings us to the question, who has to deal with it? Of course, I mean, without facts you cannot talk about anything. So it needs historians, you know, just for the reason to say what happened, and to study the events in detail, so that you can make general conclusions. You cannot make general conclusions without knowing the facts. So this, of course, cannot be done without historians. But of course, it has many aspects. It has aspects which are important for political scientists. It has aspects also which are important for psychologists, for example. It has moral aspects, and it has, of course, aspects concerning law and jurisdiction and questions like that. These have all to do with each other.
So that's actually something I would like to learn more about, because 100 years on, historically, is there much to study about the Armenian genocide, given that it's already a proven fact? Or is there still historical doubt about the Armenian genocide from the academic scientific point of view?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, especially for us, if you go to the extensive archives we have, for example, in Berlin in the Foreign Office, which is probably the most extensive archives about what happened in the Ottoman Empire in the First World War, you find plenty of evidence in many details. Even you can reconstruct whole days what happened there. But also in concern to the central and questions. I mean, if you read, for example, the letters from the German embassy to the German Chancellery from June to July 1915. There are clear words. For example, on 7th July, the German ambassador writes to the German Chancellor, there is no doubt that it is the intention of the Turkish government to exterminate the Armenian race in the Ottoman Empire. So this is a proven fact since 100 years, also for the German government. And so in that respect, we don't have to deal with it. We have to deal with it in detail. I mean, why did it happen? How did it happen? You know, and who were the perpetrators? And who were the victims? And these questions are much more interesting.
And you also mentioned legal, legislative. Is that something that's well integrated into the domain of genocide studies, given the Bundestag decision acknowledging the Armenian genocide? Does this affect and change the direction genocide studies, for example, specifically Armenian genocide studies, would take?
Well, I mean, for me, it's the legal question is also more a historical question. I'm not a legislator and I'm not a lawyer. I'm an historian, so I speak in this of terms of historical facts, and I'm more interested in questions how law developed, how jurisdiction developed. You know, how was, for example, the Armenian genocide was a very distinctive and important beginning of thinking about the necessity of international law in terms of crimes against humanity, which began, for example, with the Tehlirran trial in Berlin. I mean, this was 1921. This was, of course, not a genocide trial. It was a criminal trial because it is obvious that he killed Talat Pasha. This is no question. And so the question during this trial was not if he killed Talat. This was obvious, but why did he kill him? And so a criminal court can also lead to questions which are more than normally than you're normally interested in criminal courts.
It's more than simple fact
because you have to ask for the motives of the perpetrator, and in this case the motives of the perpetrators were the deeds of the victim, and so so it became everybody became aware that there was a lack of jurisdiction in respect to international laws, which states commit to their own civilians. And this was a starting point for his thinking about these questions, but not only for him. I mean, for example, another person who was witnessing the trial was Robert Kempner, who was main accusers in the following years. And he immigrated to the United States and came back as persecutor to Nuremberg. But also his main experience was, first experience was the trial from 1921.
So Germany has witnessed Tehlirran's trial as well as this year's Bundestag decision. So public opinions about the Armenian genocide in the 1920s, they shifted, I understand, following this trial, which was big in the news as well. And now the Bundestag, what's the public orientation or the attitude towards the Armenian genocide? Is it shifting? Or is it just left to the authorities and the legislation to take care of it?
Well, it became a public issue in the last year, I think, more than ever. There was some in 2005, but a very big debate in the newspapers last year, mainly in the spring, of course, around the 24th of April. But you know, it was the president of the republic who clearly spoke of genocide. It was also the president of the parliament who clearly spoke of genocide before the resolution of the parliament itself took place this year. It was already last year. But we have also experienced this by a conference we made in the German Historical Museum, which is the Central National Historical Museum in Germany. We made a conference about the German Empire and the Armenian genocide, which had a very big audience and also a big resonance in all media, in television and radio and all the main, but also local newspapers. So this became something which people became aware of. And you must know this, normally people don't care about things which are 100 years ago. So this needs some reason. And this has, of course, probably it has to do something with Turkish-German relations and these things also, but there is much more awareness about this than it has ever been before.
And speaking of awareness and genocide education, I know you're visiting Armenia on a special project, plans with special plans. Could you tell us more about it?
Well, I know, you know, we have plans to establish something like a summer school for the study of the Armenian genocide in Potsdam, in the house where Johannes Lepsius lived until his death, which is now renovated, and it's an institute which I'm the director of. And our idea is to establish it as a continuous event which takes place for 3 weeks every year, and which introduces students, graduate students, postgraduate students into the details of the, of the research, and bring them into a dialogue also, mainly Armenian and Turkish scholars, but also scholars from other European countries and the United States. And we understand this as a civil society project in the tradition of Lepsius, who himself was doing nothing else but organizing something like non-governmental organization projects on behalf of the Armenian relief work and his publishing about the Armenian question.
So is it a form of establishing dialogue between academics in Armenia, across Europe and Turkey? Is this a forum that would work as a place where a dialogue would also be established?
This is one place where I could imagine a dialogue could work. There are, of course, other places already where this takes place, but this is one place where I think one could establish this as something mainly for students, to bring them into their subject.
And one last question, and probably a little bit general. In your estimation, as someone who's written a book about the history of Armenian genocide, who's heading the Armenian Genocide Studies Institution, is the fact of the recognition of the Armenian genocide a possibility in the near or far future? Are we on a direction towards that, or we?
Well, the question is who recognizes it for what purpose and for what aims. The Bundestag has not recognized it. The government is still on a, let me say, sort of relativism. For us, the main question is the consequences. Will it be taught at the schools? Will it be taught at high schools? Will it be taught at universities? Will it stay a public subject in the media? And in this case, it's okay. And the recognition for the Armenians, must be a recognition by Turkey. This is the main thing. There can be so many countries, whatever, but the main question is to come into terms with Turkey.
And in the idyllic case that also probably not possible, if Turkey recognizes the Armenian genocide, are we scholarly ready to put up demands?
Well, I think, what is important in this case for Turkey is the awareness about this problem also on the civil society level. I don't expect very much from the government, but I think there's much more awareness on the civil society level in this respect than it has been in the years before, and it is also something which is taught at some universities, which is very important, and which people can more or less speak freely about. At the moment it's a bit difficult, but they could in the last years. So the more that people in Turkey are aware of the fact that coming to terms with their own history is a necessary element of the democratization of their own country, the more it leads to the aim of recognizing the Armenian genocide. It's in their own interest in a way. It should be, but this will not come from the government. I think it will come if it comes from people who are engaged in questions like that.
Thank you very much. And we hope to see you here in Armenia very soon, and best of luck with your plans.
Yes, I'm very sure I will be back soon. Thank you very much.
And we thank the viewers for joining us as well. Stay with CivilNet for more interviews and news items.